Hello and welcome to the Castle of Horror Hangout episode. We are back once again with one of those episodes that comes between our mainline episodes. They don't fit into any themes except for it just happens to be something that we would like to watch. And this week we have a very special guest. So let's start with the most familiar. From Denver, Colorado, I'm your host, Jason Henderson, writer of the upcoming book, The Bookman, coming June 2nd. With me from Austin is Tony Salvaggio, tech director at Rooster Teeth, lead singer and bassist of the band Deserts of Mars, and lead guitarist of the band Rise from Fire. Say hello, Tony.
Howdy.
Howdy. Also in Austin, writer of the long-running underground comic series Halloween Man, Mr. Drew Edwards. Say hello.
A.K.A. Mr. LaBelle.
Mr. LaBelle. But I wonder if that's with a double A, Bale, Mr. LaBelle. And finally, back by popular demand, because you demanded it, it's so exciting to hear your voice again, honestly. Jamie Bahr, executive director of Girls Rock Austin and lead singer and upright bassist of the all-female Riot Girl rockabilly soul band Danger Cakes. There's probably other words I could have put into that sentence. Welcome, Jamie.
Good to be back. Thanks for having me.
Oh, we're excited to have you, and I know that you and Drew have wanted to talk about this week's movie. This week's movie is Ready or Not, which is a new movie. That's what's really crazy. On these Hangout episodes, we have talked about some of the most random stuff. Like I forced Tony to watch The Mark of the Witch, which is a movie that only 9 people have watched since it came out in 1971. And now we're watching a major film starring Hugo Weaving's niece, Ready or Not. So, and this was, I think it was guest choice. I think this was something you wanted to watch. Isn't that right, Jamie?
Yeah, I love this movie. I think it's great.
Okay, can you set it up for us? Because I don't have a script. Can you set it up and you could even kick us off opening thoughts. But what is this movie, Ready or Not, 2019, and why did you want to discuss it?
Well, I mean, I guess we're going to have spoilers anyways, but without going too far into the plot.
All the spoilers are going to happen, yes.
Yeah. Having this woman who, so badly wants a family and she's in love and she wants to get married, and, it seems like her fiance is, he just wants to keep her. And so he brings her back home to the family to get married, but they have this whole crazy curse on them that they have to play this game, whenever someone comes home to get married in order for them to, be a part of the family. And, I found there was so many different just metaphors, and not so, some of them are pretty heavy-handed, but, a lot of nuances with this movie that really just struck me with, just how set on trying to say how to put it. Basically, how the patriarchy is, still even how it affects a relationship down to the most individual level. It's. I don't want to go too far into it because I'll save my thoughts for after. But like I said, I do really like this movie. I really find that it does have a very satirical way of presenting, what women go through in order to get the things that they want. Not just go through, but what they're put through. Yeah. And especially in this case. And, I just said, I thought this movie did that very well in a lot of ways.
It's wonderful. Thank you. Tony, I don't know. Did you watch this movie when it came out? Was it?
Yeah, movie? I saw it in the theater. I thought it was done really well. I told some people that, to me, and it's going to sound like more of a knock than I meant it to be, but to me, it was what I thought the movie You're Next should have been. All the things I wasn't really fond of in that movie, I found in this movie. And, it just worked better for me. It's interesting too, because you could take this movie, it could be a Lost Weekend kind of thing where it's just rich people sniping at the new girl and kind of playing that against, but putting it in this horror movie context and adding the most dangerous game even to that, it works on a bunch of levels. Also, since this time I rented it on Blu-ray, and I found one of my new favorite things is if it's a movie I've seen before, like this one, I played the movie, but then put the subtitles on the director's commentary, so I could read, or it was, the cast
Oh,
and crew
right. I get it. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I watched their commentary played through
And you
the
can see the
subtitles
dialogue playing,
yeah.
so you know where you are in the scene. I get it.
Right. So I listened to it and then got the commentary, and that was really cool. I might do that more often on discs that let you do that.
That
It's
is
really
cool.
interesting. Yeah. So I really do enjoy this movie. It works really well. It's definitely, the dark humor in it worked really well for me.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the whole setup, everything, and the way it ends is also great too. So I'm all in for this movie. I enjoyed it thoroughly.
Drew,
I enjoyed it the second time I saw it. So.
I interrupted you. I'm so sorry. I apologize.
That's all right.
Mr. Drew. So what are your thoughts?
Well, I think we might have a bit of a kangaroo court on this, because I also really like this movie. Jamie has already pointed out that the sort of feminist thing it has going for it. So I want to talk about, and she's infinitely more qualified to talk about that than I am, I may add. But I also want to talk about how I think what is, outside of everything that both of them said about this being a smart and funny and entertaining movie, I think comes as part of a really interesting cycle of horror movies that we have seen, come up over in the last few years. And I think about, you go all the way back to the 70s with Texas Chainsaw Massacre, and you have horror movies, and even classier movies like Deliverance and things like that, where you have these movies that are saying it's the working class that we need to be terrified of. It's the working class, they're maniacs, they're degenerates. This is what we should be terrified of. And then I think there may be another movie before this in this particular cycle, but I'm going to give Get Out as like the starting mark of this. So we starting with Get Out, and then there's like this through line, and I can think of a few other movies, like just off the top of my head, you have Ready or Not, you have The Hunt, where it's suddenly movies saying, no, you have this all wrong. It's not the working class that you need to be scared of. It's the ultra rich. And there's even a line in this movie where they say, the rich are not like other people.
Right.
And I think that is a fear right now.
Yeah.
There's this fear of class warfare, and we're seeing it played out. And I think this movie does it really well. And, you look at the way, the character of Grace is outfitted at the beginning in this, like, very elegant,
almost Victorian
movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bridal gown. And by the end of the movie, she's this blood-splattered warrior woman as she takes apart this wealthy family while they are all baffled why she can do it, but they're clueless. They're having to look up crossbow lessons on the internet. Because they have no idea how to do anything for themselves, even though they have this homicidal rage. And I find that really interesting within the context of the times that we are in. So thumbs up on the movie, big thumbs up on some of the ideas in it.
Yeah. That is a really interesting idea, that because you could also go back to mid-century stuff like 70s movies like The Legacy and whatever, and find the idea that the ultra rich have power and the ability to abuse people because they have deals with the devil, which is a metaphor for all kinds of things, right? But that idea has been around, so that you can always trust the middle class, right? Because they're not scary like in Deliverance, and they're not ultra rich who have deals with the devil. They're in the middle. This is one, I agree with you. What's really wild here is that they are so dissipated that they still have the mansions and they still have the power, but they're easily overpowered because they're just stupid. They're like they're essentially it's like years of decadence has caused them to lose their edge. Yeah, they don't know how to handle their weapons. The only one who can handle a weapon well is the old snarling ant.
Well, they haven't had to really use the weapons. That's the thing. Like they haven't had anyone, that they've actually has drawn the card since the ant's husband in the very beginning. And, they talk about how there's been cousins who have gone missing, but they both went missing, or they both, were killed.
Yeah.
So not just, the bride, or groom, but both.
Well, it's also because the only other person who can handle themselves is the valet.
Yes.
Who they pay to do all of that, because Why would you get your hands dirty if you can pay somebody because you're rich to do all the things?
When Jamie and I were rewatching this morning, I almost would love like a dossier on where they found this guy who's like he's not reaping any of the benefit from this satanic pack, but he's so all in on like, yay, I get to murder and torture people.
Yeah. Well, some people, I mean, you can see this all of this is allegory. The whole damn movie is allegory for all kinds of things. But for him, he has a place that I think he values greatly, and he gets to act within that place.
Well, it's the same as where you find, as we come through the cycle, where you find an Alfred.
Yes.
And eventually we've decided, comics has decided, Alfred was an agent and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
But this guy, you don't know, he could easily be in any hitman cleaner in a European movie.
Yes.
Like a genre film. You get the idea that, again, since they're rich, he's handled to just make things happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's the usual kind of butlers. Oh, okay, that's a house person. But in this guy, they have, hey, he's just the no questions asked person, who's going to make all of whatever you ask him to do. Yes, of course. And they pay him well to be that person and keep the family secrets. That's the end,
This is kind of like I don't know, maybe a racially insensitive way to say this, but I feel like he's almost like a white Uncle Tom, where it's like a classist way.
He's a class trader.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, but the thing of it is, like I say, like anybody in that situation, the reason they make those decisions is he feels like the bargain is in his favor. He feels like he's gotten the best deal that he could get, and this guy seems to really enjoy driving that vehicle after this runaway bride. I mean, that seems to be he seems to be having a fantastic time. But you know what? Let's go back a little bit, because I want to even though that's really cool, and actually we do have the freedom on this episode to go kind of crazy, but I want to go back a little bit to this family that the lovable Grace is marrying into, because when we meet her, she seems very, she seems like she's got a good head on her shoulder. She's cool. We kind of get a feel for her very quickly. There's not much, she wants to marry into this family. What's the deal with this family? I mean, Jamie, can you explain both what they appear, but what is the deal with the curse? What is this thing? What's going on?
Well, I mean, the curse has to do with, Mr. LaBelle, who granted the family, well, I guess the patriarch actually of the family, this box that, basically has like a magic deck, and each year they have to, basically play a game from the selection. And it's really, you find out it's not just this little game that they play. They're Satanists. They're like straight up Satanists, and not like the Anton LaVey, like, I'm going to go sacrifice a goat.
Right.
And, it's not just the parents, they have the children, like the children are raised into it. And that was something that definitely struck me. It's, there's this whole scene where he's talking about how, anything can be normal if your family says it's okay.
Isn't that great?
Right.
Isn't that a wonderful line? That's fabulous.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is, so anybody who marries into the family, they have to play the game to prove their loyalty or be sacrificed. And of course, because of that, there's a twisted nature to it, right? You can surmise that perhaps the most innocent of the people coming into the family probably get this card each time, because that's how the devil works.
Yeah, you're right. That's a
Drew
good
and I were
point.
talking about that today. It's just like, what about the other people who married into the family, like the brother-in-law and the sister-in-law who
They got lucky.
Did they get lucky, or
That's
do
the
you
thing.
think they like, why is the devil gonna want that that guy that's like kind of obnoxious, can't use a crossbow, and like, it seems like she's not necessarily a virgin, but she's almost virginal in not just like appearance, but like the fact that, she wants very traditional things. She really wants a family. I actually thought that was brilliant acting in that scene between her and Andy McDowell, when they're sitting on the bench, and she's talking about being a foster child, and saying like, oh, my foster parents did the best they could, like all of them always did the best they could. It was kind of nice to not see there be this like whole trauma. Like usually, as someone who's worked a lot with kids in foster care, there's a lot of trauma. Like they have the most heartbreaking and usually terrifying stories that you've ever heard from a child. And, she doesn't go into any of that. She was, she said, I'm fortunate to be raised by people who, cared, did the best they could and cared, but, she just really wanted a family. And the way she looks, there's like it's in her mannerisms with her eyes, honestly. The fact that she doesn't look her like she in the face, like she keeps talking about it, but she averts, like her eyes keep kind of glancing to the side, like she's nervous. And, she's, you can tell it's like this, almost like it's very vulnerable, and almost like it makes her seem mousy and, fragile. And, her having that conversation with the mother of the house, and in a way to get her to almost have this acceptance of not just her, but, the mother wants to manipulate her to bring her son back into the fold and into the family again. And, and she's gung-ho. She really wants that for herself and for her husband. So it's like,
I was just sighing at how frustrating it is, because it means that she knows, the young lady knows, Grace knows that if she's going to do well here, she needs to tamp down any concern of her own, other than I want a family. And, she's translated all of that into a very nice story. And maybe her life wasn't as bad as it could be, but she's translated all into, Andie MacDowell doesn't want to hear my sob story, right? None of these people want to be burdened with my story. And moreover, I'm not going to burden them with it, because that's not what I'm here to do. What I'm here to do is get married and become a part of this thing. And, so it's sad in a sense. She presents herself as less as a facet of herself instead of her whole self. But then I step back and I go, actually, though, don't we all do that? I mean, don't you meet somebody, you don't just immediately vomit all of your
deepest, darkest secrets,
right? unless you do. I've met some people who were like that, and to be honest with you, it was quite charming. But it's she's playing it very, very carefully. She wants this thing to go off without a hitch, and she just wants to present as positive an aspect as you can. She's trying so damn hard, and I feel really sad.
It's really,
for her.
I really like the dynamic too, because Andie MacDowell legitimately, until she has to basically take care of her family first, you get the impression that the father is just, oh, how could he marry her,
right?
And the aunt especially. But Andie MacDowell seems to legitimately, if everything, like if it had been Tiddlywinks or Checkers or whatever, she would have been fine with that. And hey, look, my son's back, and look, now I have a daughter-in-law. This is great.
Yeah. I no reason to think she's lying about anything.
Down for Satanism,
right?
But
by the way, how good is Andie MacDowell? I mean,
I thought she was fantastic.
She's amazing.
Here in this movie, I hadn't seen her in anything recently, so and she looks exactly the same. She doesn't look like a day older than she did in Groundhog's Day.
Right. It's amazing, isn't it?
But I really like
it's because she's been reliving the same day over and over again.
Right. But I like that dynamic that she has to take. She's going to do what she needs to do for the family, but she doesn't have the same malice that perhaps the aunt does, or I'm blanking on the names. I need to look it up again. But
the aunt's malice is pure classism. That's just straight up. I think this girl's a gold digger. And then it's funny, we should go over the different family members and how they react to Grace, because the aunt is hilariously against her.
I love the costume design on all of these people. I have to say, like Charles Addams would be very, very proud, especially the aunt. Like she, Jamie. Like what are the? I can never pronounce it. What are the villains on the Dark Crystal called?
The Skeksis.
Okay, the aunt looks to me like if they took one of those creatures and somehow forged it into human form. Like she's.
By the way, I had no idea that's what they were called. Just so you know,
she's got this weird, like swept up like whiter than white, ducktail hairdo. She's got this outfit that kind of resembles an executioner's hood, and it's even brought home later when she's like running around with an axe.
Yes.
And like just everything about her is so severe. Like she might be my favorite character in the movie, even though you're absolutely not supposed to be rooting for her.
I think she's hilarious. Yeah, no, I agree. She's a fantastic character. I don't even know who this actress is, and I'll be embarrassed if it turns out that it's somebody I've been watching my entire life. So there's the aunt. There's the alcoholic brother Daniel, the one with the beard and the mopiness, and he cares for Grace, and he's not particularly interested in hunting her down, even if Satan wants it, because this family has a deal with somebody called Mr. LaBelle, which is clearly a reference to Baal. And then Daniel's wife Charity, who
I actually liked her character too, because she evidently had a lot of hardship.
Yeah.
So she almost looks at Grace as competition / I'm not gonna let her, like, I don't care what she's been through. I've been through worse probably, or however.
Well, it's part of the deal. She has to, just like Andy McDowell, once the bell rings, she's got to do this.
But even before that, the way she approaches things is, okay. There's no, the kind of claws are already out because, who's this? Like, I've been through stuff too. You're not the only one who's got a corner, and you're not going to ruin this.
Right.
And I thought that dynamic was actually really, really cool.
And there's the sister Emily, who's like all coked out. She has 2 kids, but she is the funniest. She's great.
She's from Letterkenny. We were watching it, and we were probably a good 15-20 minutes into it, and suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, it's Mrs. McMurray. So I don't know if you watched.
I don't know. It means nothing to me. What? Tell me more. I'm sorry.
It's a Canadian TV show, but she's a Canadian actress out of Ottawa, and she's just hysterical in it. She's just one of the side characters, but she's really funny.
Her name is Melanie Scrofano. No, I'm telling you, I think she's the funniest thing in this movie. She's like really, really good. I've never seen her before, ever.
You would be amazed at how much she transforms herself from between this and Letterkenny with just the way she changes her facial expressions, Jason.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
Apparently, I haven't seen it, but she's also Winona Earp.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But, I'm sure that there are people listening to this show who are like, you fools, that's Winona Earp, and they're like mad at us for not knowing that, and I'm sorry. It's it's so hard when you miss out on fandom. You know what I mean?
I'm just embarrassed to say that I have not watched Winona Earp yet, because I have been friendly with Bo Smith for years, and that's based off of his comic. So
I'm just saving it up, my friend.
Finally get around to watching Winona Earp.
Yeah. No, but she's really funny, and the thing is that what I think is most brilliant about this script, like the part that really made me sit up and like my jaw drop, was how funny this script could be about how much the rich don't give a shit about anybody else. Because her character, who is delightful and lovable, and if you had brunch with her, you would really like her. And yet her character is so down a rabbit hole of coke and whatever she's into that she doesn't even know that she's killing, she's killing maids left and right, and she doesn't care. It doesn't mean anything to her. She's beyond
she's sad that she did it.
She's upset. But it's more like the spoiled child who, didn't get with the pony that they wanted, as opposed to her being mad that she actually killed someone.
That she's going to get in trouble. She doesn't see those as and I know that this is a comedy, right? But that's why it's a joke, and it's why we can talk about it. She doesn't see those as people. That's and like I say, the weird thing is that she's so likable, and yet at the same time so awful because she's part of this thing. And that's amazing.
This character really brings home something. So back when we did Antrum, with David. We had the sub, that we and subsequently when we were talking about Prince of Darkness, when we were talking about what is and what isn't the Satanic Panic horror movie. To me, even though that Satanism is a component to this movie, I would not call this a Satanic Panic horror movie because the Satanism isn't the thing. It's not where the terror is coming from. It's not where the laughs are coming from. All of the stuff, like you talk about this character's behavior, and the most important thing in this movie is not the occult aspect of it. That's just window dressing for the class warfare.
Right.
Yeah,
That's exactly
I
right.
love that. When, the ending, not to just jump to that, but like
go back and forth all you like.
Well, I was totally caught off guard by that. Like I was so surprised when it happened because I didn't actually think that there was I didn't think there was like a supernatural power at work.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Do you think, Jamie, that it would be better? In other words, we don't know until the sun comes up. They're living under a curse. They say living under a curse. If we don't kill this girl by the time the sun comes up, we're all going to die because Mr. LaBelle. That's our deal with Mr. LaBelle. And the sun comes up, and what happens, and it's a supernatural solution. And my question to you is, do you think it would have been better? By the way, I do, but I could be wrong. Do you think it would have been better if instead they had all died in a fire and we had to ask ourselves, well, was that fire maybe supernaturally made worse, or was it really a supernatural, or was it all in their mind? I mean, would that be better, or is it better this way?
I think it's better this way. I actually, because I was so surprised by it. Like, I think if it
That's
had
true.
just, they wait before, they pop there's
Yes.
that waiting, that few minutes where you think that nothing's going to happen, and they're all to the point where, the crazy aunt's just like, I'm going to finish this, and,
Yes.
but, she's the first one to go. And it's, I feel like if we had that wishy-washiness of oh, they died in a fire, they all just stood around in that room and wait till the fire, that doesn't make sense. They would have to they would all run back into the building and they would all die. It's I don't know, I don't think it would work very well. Right.
It would be a different movie. I mean, you would just do that scene differently. Like they would get trapped or something like that.
Right.
And
you could do it what's the series where they run from the dead?
I think it would be a different I think it would be a different tone. I don't think
because suddenly if you have kids dying in a fire, that's darker than this movie even is. If you have kids dying because a demon exploding them, you can kind of chuckle at it.
Right. And also there's the other part of, the ring. But
kids aren't murdered on stage, on screen.
True. No, they run off screen and you just kind of see them pop. You hear them pop and there's
see the splash.
Right. But I think if you had a
funny. That's you go from something that's so dark to making that amusing, because you're like, oh it's not just oh god, this horror and this shock and awe. It's it's funny.
But to Tony's point, you could have had a strange series. I know this is going to sound dumb, but I'm just tossing this up.
No,
you could have a strange series of errors where one person falls through the floor and the floorboard that he tips hits a lantern, which then knocks somebody else out and it sets a curtain on fire.
That might as well be supernatural. If they're dying by Looney Tunes logic, that just becomes supernatural at that point.
But
death by misadventure is what you would call all of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, what Jason's describing, there's a lot of ways to do that where it isn't crazy slapstick. But
no, and I feel like you could, if you did that, you're going to change the whole tone of the movie.
Maybe you're right.
That's what I'm saying, actually. So if you had the ending you're talking about, what you're talking about is a lot darker movie and possibly maybe 70s kind of. I don't know, and a lot less comedic.
That's correct.
So if you were to make that movie, I think it would be closer to House of the Devil, and less like this movie. And that's
The Legacy. Yeah. Where you had Roger Daltrey just suddenly choke on a chicken bone, which when you think about it is funny. I mean, Roger Daltrey, a very expensive mouth in that movie, nevertheless suddenly chokes on a chicken bone and dies at the table.
I'm not saying that what you're describing couldn't be an interesting film, but I just don't think the people that made like
yeah, no, I get it. This is a very deliberate choice, and it answers the question for you. You know, lest you've been wondering whether there's really anything supernatural, it answers yes, there is. I'm not mocking it. I'm not saying it's wrong per se.
Well, I would be interested to know is because you watch lots of movies where there's supernatural stuff. Why does it give you pause here?
Because to me, why does it give me pause? That's a really solid question. And the answer is because up until that moment, it's not relevant whether there's anything supernatural going on.
I don't think that it is ultimately relevant to where Grace is at the end of the movie, because to me, the demon killing the rest of the family is more just acts of cinematic vengeance. The rest of this family needs to be bulldozed out of existence because they're awful.
Well, that's true. No, I agree.
It's no different than Jason Voorhees like showing up and like lopping off all their heads with a machete.
It's definitely like a sudden left turn. You know,
I think it's because of the realism. Honestly, throughout the, you could see stuff like this actually happening, you know, and, this family, like, okay, yeah, they're doing this, superstitious game that they have to do. But, she's not really even aware that they think that they're going to die. Like,
right. A couple of people tell her halfway through, but nobody has time to explain much of anything.
Well, and cults are a thing.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, they could believe crazy shit. I mean, absolutely they could. People, unfortunately, people kill one another all the time because of their crazy ideas, and so sure, no, it could happen. What I find also really funny, to get back for a moment to the humor of the film, I was thinking about other maids who died. The fact that so many of the maids, probably 3, but the fact that amongst all of this all the crazy shenanigans of people shooting at one another and injuring one another, the only people who get killed are the poor. And that is like one of the most amazing allegories of this entire film, which is that we all get our entertainment on the backs of people who have less power than us, which is an indictment that I have to own up to. I mean, that's absolutely true.
Well, it's also why we've talked about a lot of shows where the punchline is underprivileged, or I don't like that reality TV,
right?
Because it
I
happens
agree with you.
for real all the fucking time.
Yeah.
So when everybody's sweeping through as these, oh look, haha, let's laugh at these people. And I say these people because that's how most people think of it. Like, I don't find that entertaining.
Okay, so am I wrong? Do you feel like this is improper? And Jamie, I'm sorry,
not in this movie, because the whole point is like when they kill somebody and they're gargling and not dying.
Yeah.
The rich aren't like, oh, that's terrible. They're mad because they're inconvenienced at having to put them out of their misery. Ugh. Why didn't you just die initially? Ugh, now I have to take care of this. And so in the context of this movie, it works. It's great as far as it's showing exactly their character.
Well, I couldn't help but think that it's how timely, this all is. Even now with, the virus going around, like the first people to go are the workers.
Right. And everybody else is inconvenient.
And not to mention, they all look very much the same, even though I think one's Asian.
Right.
And they all they look
put
so
them in a maid
similar.
uniform that's from the Robert Palmer video.
That's what I thought too. I was like, oh, it's like a Robert Palmer video. But they all have that same, look to them that, I think that's also a deliberate choice to show it's like there's not that much different. And although, when the one gets the arrow through the mouth, the brother-in-law is like, oh, she was my favorite. And like the mother kills the the sister kills the nanny too. Like that's the first death, and that's the person who's literally taking care of her children.
Yeah.
Well, also there's the maid who's going back to the video, her looking like she's from the video. She even says, I'm not even really a maid. He just likes the way I dance.
Right.
So she's there just to be ogled at.
Yeah.
Which I'm sure Andy McDowell thinks that's great.
Well,
she's just like that. really?
It's just roles. These are just the roles that these people play because they have to, because that's where the balance of power lies. Somebody says, I like the way you dance. I want you to come be a maid in my house. They go, I don't know the first thing about being a maid. It's fine. Don't worry about it. Just come to the house, do some dancing, and do whatever the maids do, and we'll pay you a lot of money, or pay you a little money, but it's more money than you have, and that's it. Uh,
Right.
yeah, but Jamie's right. This is so it's so important now, because look who we're the middle class and the upper class are bitching and moaning because, it's not safe for waiters and waitresses to serve people inside of a restaurant, because we'll breathe on them and make them sick, because they'll see way more people in an hour working in the restaurant than we will. And yet we're the ones acting like it's hard on us. Isn't that it's
I mean, I have
remarkable.
all kinds of friends in the service industry.
Yeah.
And it's frustrating because you see other countries paying people to actually live and be safe and be healthy. And we've decided that stockholders need their money.
Yeah.
And that if you tell people, here's the deal. If you bring people back to work and they refuse to work, your unemployment numbers go down. You know why? Because those people can't be on unemployment. I've been one of those people. So if you run out of, hey, look, magically our unemployment numbers are back up. You know why? Not because they aren't unemployed, but because rich people have made it so if you don't go into work because you could die, then that's your fault. And it's total fucking bullshit.
No, I agree with you.
And, but that's why this movie and movies like it are fairly cathartic.
Yeah.
Because fuck these assholes.
Going back to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre comparison, or the fact that
please.
This sort of not a series, but definitely a theme through modern horror comparison. Like you had these movies that were, like, again, demonizing the underclass. Demonizing the sort of people that would have service jobs, or, in the instance of Texas Chainsaw, people working in meat packing plants. And hello, what's going on in society today? Like, we have meat packing plants that aren't being shut down because people are getting sick. And, I think, these sort of movies are coming along because whether people are realize it, consciously or not, they are fed up. Like, horror is always where you can take the cultural temperature. So, you do have a movie like Get Out, or you do have a movie like this one where it's suddenly saying, maybe we should be suspicious of these people who are in these big houses and we don't really know what they're doing or what they get up to, or how did they amass all this money anyway.
Yeah.
And I think people ignoring the messages within these movies, because people could always be dismissive and go, oh, that's just a horror movie. Mm-hmm. But horror is almost always where you see what is bubbling up beneath the culture coming out. So I say, ignore it. As fanciful as this movie is and as funny as this movie is, ignore it at your own risk. Yeah. Because there's some very serious cultural issues that are being talked about underneath here.
Absolutely. Did you think that The Hunt was, see, I haven't seen it, but I've heard that it's also a lot of these same lines, that there's a lot to see there, that people didn't, for some reason that movie kind of got derailed, and I think it had something to do with
that movie got...
I was going to say, which one was the one that the right-wing people kept, were saying it was, the bride represented them? Was that The Hunt, or was that?
I guess it's. I think it's The Hunt.
Isn't about a bride, but it is about a woman. The Hunt is very
woman.
Honestly, yeah. This movie and The Hunt would make a pretty good double feature, because I think this movie is better. But The Hunt is also entertaining, and I think also culturally interesting. A lot of people. It got derailed because, there was people that were saying, they're initially there was like, oh, rich people are killing right-wingers, blah, blah, blah. Then it got derailed because it came out the exact week that all the movie theaters started getting shut down. which is
that was
another,
one of the last
which
ones
makes
I
it a
saw.
very, it's not really about what a lot of people were making it to be about, and what I would actually say is it's about a lot of the same stuff that this movie is about.
Yeah.
This movie voices it, I think, better. But The Hunt is also an entertaining movie. Like you definitely could get an interesting, like I said, you watch these two movies back to back. I definitely think that that's a good conversation starter, if nothing else.
You could throw Parasite in with this too.
Oh yeah,
Absolutely.
Hands down.
Interesting. Wow. I mean, that's really that's the most sublime thing that we can even say about this film. So we should take it back to something else. Is there anything that we haven't touched on that would be worth making into our last topic? And I apologize for thinking out loud, but you know what? It's a less organized episode.
I thought the family name was actually pretty funny. Well, not funny, but kind of like, oh, all right, because there's so
What are
much
they again?
symbolism. They're Ladomas, and that means, well, oddly enough, it means a couple different things. Like it can mean checkers in Spanish, but it also means control.
I didn't know that. I really didn't know that. Wow. Okay. Wonderful. I did. There's something else I was just thinking about with the context of the wedding. You mentioned Andie MacDowell, Jamie, and I was thinking, we know her from like Four Weddings and a Funeral. And I was thinking movies like that, like Richard Curtis, like who doesn't love Richard Curtis comedies? I love them, right? They're wonderful. They're kind of like, they're comfort food. You can, in Saturday morning, you turn on a Richard Curtis thing like the Boat That Rocked or Notting Hill or whatever. Nothing, it's even the offensive stuff is inoffensive. It's like breakfast cereal. But it's so freaking, it's not aware of class struggle at all. It exists. Romantic comedies exist in this world, like where basically everybody can just sort of daydream that they're really wealthy, and it's neat. I was thinking Andie MacDowell is kind of loaning herself to act as a bridge from those movies to these movies. Well, okay.
Well, I think we haven't talked. Possibly, if you're looking for more topics, the actual meat of the survival.
Oh yeah, we should. Yes.
Also,
otherwise,
I
it's
think
a completely
about
allegorical conversation. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, that and the fact that I do think that we should talk about the relationship between Grace and Alex, her fiance, and how he could just, because you wonder, did he? Because he's really, the center of all of this. He's the one who's supposed to take over the family, and he knew about it, but just he still had to bring her home to his family. And I understand if she maybe insisted, but throughout the movie, it just drove me nuts how it's like, how could you know and not tell someone this? And he's like, oh, well, you would leave me. And it's like, people
That's
have
pretty
fucked
shitty.
up families.
It is pretty shitty.
I mean,
the
meat of the matter is exactly what we've been talking about. His family still pays for all his shit.
Yeah.
And this happens tons of times where people, I'll rebel, but don't cut off my trust fund.
Right.
I can't possibly rebel against that. I used to see it at SCAD. All of these kids who would be super hippies or all super everything. And Parents' Day, they had to keep getting the money.
Yeah.
I was dirt poor. They had to. So you saw all these people who were so counterculture, so just different together. And the parents show up and all of a sudden it's like prep school.
I'd say that was accurate for Brian, the brother, but I don't think that's actually the case for Alex.
Why not? I mean, he depend up until the end where he decides that he's going to go with survival. I think I think it's all like he's convinced himself that he's so outside of his family.
I don't know. I think honestly he believes that what he's doing is I think he really thinks he's doing the right thing. And that's what going back and talking about the normalcy of, sacrificing goats and walking around chanting satanic masses. Him talking about that being normal. I feel like that's his it seems like the paternal order of things, and how the system is very much ingrained in him. And so even though he does seem to really love Grace, but I think it's more of a selfish love, like where he's, holding on to it like her, like she's a possession,
Yeah.
like, and that, I couldn't, it just didn't make sense to me. Like, I was like, no, he's, he talks about getting, he's like, I would kill you if you kill her. And he's going, till he threatens his mother and everything. And
Well, one
then
thing's for
ends up
sure.
like
Well,
changing his mind basically after first, Grace kills his mother. And then
yeah.
he turns around and he's like, you're not going to stay with me after this. And,
Well,
maybe
again, that's the selfish part of
Yeah.
it. Like that's.
I also think he thinks that that she can sort of miraculously, the way unfortunately a lot of men, think or trained to think, as Jamie keeps talking, is that we think that we have to go out and find a woman that can heal us. It's the old, you talk about
Right.
romantic comedies. It's the old romantic comedy trope of you complete me, you heal me.
Yes.
And, and I think that he thinks that marrying this woman if she loves him and she accepts him, she's going to wash away all the bad stuff about him. And he doesn't actually have to do any work on himself. It's just her acceptance.
Well, I think but that does go with what Jamie's talking about, because even early on, I think part of it also is the fact that that's the part that's also really attractive to him. She comes from the other side of the tracks. Mm-hmm. So if she can love him and he can get away, he's fine. But again, he doesn't love it enough to just not. Yeah. He has to come home to get married and get the approval and do all the things.
Sure.
So his selfishness in that case is still, and how it's ingrained into him being part of that family, he still can't break that cycle.
I do have to wonder about, like, all of the little things, that they don't really talk about in the movies. Like, if they had eloped, would all of their family just suddenly randomly blow up? Like, would they have been like, I do?
It's a good question.
You may kiss the bride and pop, like, would that have all happened? Is that?
I think it would have. Because I think ultimately, anytime we do an episode with a satanic aspect to it, Tony brings this up. So I'm not going to say that this is my thought, but the nature of demons being demonic and how they are is there's always a level of trickery there, and you're not going to get out of your deal.
I mean, he even comes up at the close to the end where he's yelling at the painting. The father's yelling, "Couldn't you have brokered a better deal?" So angry that because the families inherited this deal. None of them made this thing.
That's right.
And the deal caused poor
more allegory,
Helene,
by the way.
poor Aunt Helene had to crossbow somebody.
Yeah.
So this is something that's just how it happens, and you don't want to be like the Van Horns, because what happened to them.
Yes.
I think about, like, you know what happens to all these people, but, like, are saying that they didn't make this money. They didn't make this deal, like, but they're still benefiting from the deal. They're still benefiting from the money. And who, supposedly it's kind of like a Milton Berle's, like, deal. You're like, oh, the family made their money in games of chance. But, before that, it's, you have to wonder, it makes you think about, like, corporations that have made so much money on the backs of slavery and, or child labor and, all of these things. And then, maybe it's found out about, and maybe, hopefully they stop what they're doing, but they never seem to actually get punished for what they have done. It's like, maybe like, oh, a slap in the wrist, here's a fine, and maybe that they'll have some, poor publicity for their brand, but it always seems to get swept under the rug.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's, that's something that I feel like that represents that part of the movie. So,
I mean, the rich take care of their own.
Yeah.
There was
that's straight up just, we can't have.
What I wonder, you talk about the nature of the deal, something that I find myself wondering, especially with how the movie ends, is, so Grace marries into this family and they're all wiped out, seemingly in a fire, but they're all dead. So she's now the last living member of this family, technically. If she inherits all the wealth, does she inherit the curse?
I'm gonna go with no. I don't think this girl's ever gonna give in to the curse
Well,
anyway.
they talked about how in the commentary they talk about how she probably just ends up going to prison because she killed a family and burnt down.
She'll be fine. They'll never prove anything. I mean, like, how did that blood get on?
What the actress
killed a family.
Directors were like, they're like, oh yeah, the next film would totally be her, like, having to do with prison and blah blah blah. Well, again,
or maybe she'd use that white privilege and, I'm saying,
and avoid prison. Yes, exactly. Yeah. She's not going to go to prison. I mean, yeah, it's true. She's covered in blood.
If other rich people decide that she should, then she will for sure.
Yeah, who knows?
Because
there might be some cheating that does it. So, I just wanted to.
Or
mention,
we can't. I don't. Who knows what the devil will actually do?
That's true. Yeah. No, all this is true.
I don't think the devil actively, other than the financial arrangement, I don't think this demon will actually lift a hand to help these people because she annihilates them. Like every time it comes down to her versus one of them, and she's hardcore. Like I was talking about this with Jamie, when she grabs a gun, and if those, so that's an elephant gun. If those rounds had been live, when she shot at the butler, he would have been a pair of legs. Big Bear. That is such a powerful
that cartridge
shotgun.
Is huge.
Yeah,
like when you look at it, you're like, oh man, that's.
I know. I've never. I mean, can you imagine? Yeah, no, it's an enormous cartridge. And we say guns aren't a phallic symbol, but I just wanted to go back for a moment. I believe my take when he doesn't tell his wife about it. I don't believe that any argument that he gives about why he didn't tell her has anything to do with the truth. I think he is.
I'm with you.
I think he is. Look, people are cowardly without realizing that they're cowards. Most cowards don't walk around going, "I'm a coward," and some of us are quite brave, and then we do cowardly things. It's just a cowardly thing. He just simply wusses out on telling her. And because it's going to be uncomfortable, and he probably doesn't have uncomfortable.
Well, that's part of his history too.
Right.
He didn't confront his family. He left.
Yeah.
And found somebody who, quote unquote, completes him. And I think, relationships are complicated and messy. So I don't think he's.
That's really, a good slogan for this movie.
He's convinced himself. I mean, I think he's in his head. He's gone. Like, no, I really love this person, and our relationship is great. And she's found somebody who really cares about her. She may not have had that. I don't. It's not malice,
right?
But it's also not anybody else looking at it is not seeing it's not altruistic as well. I think Drew also hits upon it.
Which makes him a user just like them. In other words, you can indict him just like we can be indicted. Like I go on cruises. I like to go on cruises. I like to read on a deck and look at the ocean. But I'm completely guilty of the same things that the people who make the bad choices for the ecology and all the evils that come out of that. I'm just as guilty, even though I'm not doing it to be malicious. I just want to read a Ray Bradbury novel next to the ocean. He's not being malicious, but he's still benefiting from the good stuff, and he's still hurting the people who are being hurt. That's what the movie's trying to make us think of.
Yeah, I mean, Rain and I took a vacation to Cancun, and there's a whole system that's in play there. And if you know of anything, you're thinking, oh man, am I the baddie? It's like that.
Am I part of the problem?
Am I the baddie? Maybe. I mean, I can't. I'm not.
The answer
I'm helping with employment, but there's a lot of other stuff in that. And so,
Drew, I'm sorry. What did you say?
When you ask yourself if you're part of the problem, the answer is usually yes.
Usually,
of course. And but it's something.
Yeah.
And again, it's the cyclical thing where you're even thinking about it. We have the luxury to even think about it.
Yes.
Whereas, there were times when I was well under the unemployment line that I didn't. There were lots of things I didn't think about because I had so much other stuff to worry about.
Well, that's the other thing. Let's say that you're a poor person and you can get protein for your family by buying really cheap hamburgers from a company that makes really disastrous ecological decisions. Are you immoral for buying that protein? I would say, no, you're not. You're doing your best, honestly. But the rest of us who have choices, we get more culpability as we get more choices, and and that's tough to think about. I'm not saying I'm going to change my life because I'm aware of these questions, but it's.
But again, we're having this discussion because we saw a horror movie that presents a lot of these things.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking of is if you look at those giant, and then we should get to what Jamie was talking about, which is talk about this relationship a little more, but or maybe we've hit it. But you get to those giant, like big fat fiction books of the 70s that I think I was talking about. I talk about a lot, like Scruples and stuff like that. And what was interesting about those books is that they were really into just lavishing praise on the rich. But at the time, there was also this, and usually they were about a girl who doesn't come from wealth, but she comes into this family and she's going to scrape and claw until she is one of the leaders of the family. Like it's a game, basically. And in those books, there's always this sort of weird morality that basically that's just life. That basically you're just going to have to stomp on some people to be able to not be a victim. And it's funny to me that I'm not even aware that I see that lesson very much anymore. I'm not saying I liked that lesson or didn't like that lesson, but it's interesting to me that lesson was super popular in the 70s, which was a shitty economic time. And it's not so popular anymore. You don't see a lot of movies about how great it is to be rich and mean. So I don't know. Maybe the reader will chime in. So yes, relationships. Are there any relationships that we haven't touched on?
Brian and Alex.
Which is actually a very important relationship now that you bring it up.
Oh, crazy.
Well, I mean, the whole thing, first of all, I mean, relationships between brothers, especially tense relationships between brothers is, I mean, that's one of the oldest literary tropes in the book. I mean, that's biblical even.
Yeah.
But the thing is like this relationship actually makes me feel really sad because Brian really deep down is good, or he's at least better than Alex makes a good show of like, oh, I'm a good guy. Brian actively does try to do the right thing, and it cost him his life.
Yeah, Daniel, older brother Daniel.
Yeah, sorry, Daniel. I'm getting the names wrong, but
you're good. You're good.
He's better than the seemingly better brother, and it's something I like. On this viewing of this movie, when he's dying, I actually, the risk of sounding like somebody that gets easily drawn into movies and emotional that way, but like. I found myself getting a little choked up because, like, if any of this family deserved to survive, it was probably him because he made an ethical choice. He basically deprogrammed himself from this cult. And, honestly, the fact that he drinks is probably even all of his life. I think the thing that Jamie keeps going back to about, the person that talks about how this you could be made to feel normal doing something absolutely weird. He brings that up several times. Yes. And I think the reason why he drinks is that he knows that this is fucked up, and he knows that like his marriage is terrible, and everything about this is terrible. And I just find by contrast. The contrast is interesting, but just individually, he's a very sad character.
Well, he's also even more pure, like you said. Whereas, his brother has fooled himself into thinking I'm actually better than the family because I broke away.
Right.
His dealing with it is, well, I'm gonna drink, and I brought my wife into the family. She's kind of terrible, but maybe we deserve each other, and she's made her peace with, hey, I like being rich instead of being where I was, whatever that was. And he's not even trying to subvert from within. He's just, he's barely dealing. He's at the I'm going to make this as normal as possible for as long as possible because that's the only way I can deal with this. And his childhood trauma as well. So his purity in the way in his actions is actually the best in the family, in the immediate family.
But, and he's also the most self-aware too, and he's the one who's like, oh, this family needed to come down, burn down. I just never thought I'd be the one with the match. Even in the beginning, he's the one who saves Alex. from having to witness what they're doing to the aunt's, newlywed husband. And but then he also turns on him and says like, oh, he's in here. And we
Yeah.
see, that that's his nature, is to go with what the family is asked of him. But they still knows that like he wants to protect his younger brother. That's something I thought was very, just sweet compared to the rest of the family, and even at the end, he's still trying to save, he likes Grace, but he's mainly doing it because he loves his brother.
Yeah.
And
I think that desire to protect his sibling is one of the reasons why I just feel heartsick for him.
Yeah, and you get the impression that he actually kind of did hope, like, just go, man. Just why'd you come back?
Right.
Yeah.
You were the hope. Like you were away.
Yeah.
I couldn't break free. I drink. I'm part of this. I'm in it. But you were I'm guarantee you that in that character's mind, it was just don't come back, man. You know what this family does. And he had that hope. And then it must have been heartbreaking to see like, oh, well, I guess you're falling back into it. You know where none of us are strong enough to break this. And there's a curse that we can't break. So that's super heartbreaking. And it really adds to the meat of it. It's really cleverly done. Both the performances and the subtext.
It's a lot better than it has to be, isn't it? You think about like exploitation movies where people hunt people.
There's been dozens upon dozens of Most Dangerous Game ripoffs, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And just think somebody, because they all, it costs the same. One costs the same more or less as the other. Here you're going to make a mid to large budget Hollywood Most Dangerous Game ripoff. What will yours be like? And they do this movie that's actually, again, a lot better than it could be, because they could have made Hard Target. I'm not saying Hard Target's not a good movie, but it's not this movie.
But that movie also has the Van Damme, so
yes. Oh, so good.
True.
Van Damme played a guy named Chance from New Orleans. That was why he had that accent, was because he was a Cajun.
Right.
Nothing makes me happier
you
than
could have
Van Damme
made,
trying to explain his accent.
As fun as it is surviving the game with Ice-T.
Oh, wow.
And, that has its own charm, but Rutger Hauer and Gary Busey, totally different than this. Not nearly.
I did not see that. That sounds fabulous. I want to
It's-
see Rutger Hauer and Gary Busey team up.
Oh man, it is something else.
Yeah.
But it's not this movie.
So my point is, this is way better than it has to be.
Yeah. And I mean, again, that movie's fun and crazy, but we're talking a totally different thing.
I think that probably gets us around to our final thoughts on Ready or Not. We should start with Jamie, because I know that it was Jamie's love of this film that caused us to want to do it. So Jamie, do you feel like we've given justice to Ready or Not?
Oh yeah, I'd say so. I think it's definitely, this movie is totally worth a watch. It's at times really brilliant in the way it handles talking about these subjects, and it's, I said, very entertaining. It's really funny, and there's that you really feel for Grease, and that one scene where she gets thrown into the goat pen.
Oh man,
horrible. Like that scene, and then she's climbing up the ladder, and she's just been shot in the head.
Yeah,
that's like, I felt like everybody, I know I felt it, and Drew was like, oh god, I felt that. It's like you feel that in your spine, like to watch someone do something like that. And it's not an exceptionally gory scene. It's kind of, she's clutching her poor hand that's just been shot by a child, which that's another funny thing. She totally punches out a kid.
So many, they talked about that. The two of the scenes that they say got the most crowd reaction was when she decides, I need to survive, and kind of rips all their dress so that it's manageable. So lots of people, and I even was like, yes, that's what you do. Like none of this running around. Yeah, exactly.
I was like, yeah.
Yeah, they
I have
talked
checks
about
at my
women.
wedding.
Exactly. But they talked about women. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
Oh,
But the talk about women in the audience, and they were all, capitulating. This is the moment, and then the other moment was punching that kid. They said we got a lot more reaction than we thought. It's a lot of parents going, like,
it was nice
a lot of
seeing.
pent up aggression, possibly.
Yeah, it was actually kind of nice seeing someone like it made it more realistic. Like the fiance, Alex is like, oh, here, I got your shoes. And if
Yeah.
this was a different type of movie, she'd be running around this whole movie in heels, like in
Yeah.
freaking Jurassic Park. This is if way more realistic. Like I had a pair of Chuck Taylors at my wedding, and
Yeah.
of course she's got Chucks for under her bridesmaid dress, like that no one will notice, or but
That's a
that's
neat detail. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah. Wow, I didn't think
Also,
about that.
when you talk about that, it does bring back that he, up until the turn, there's a long time where he is actually helping her, and it really does feel he's really, because he tries to open the doors for her, trash the cameras, etc. Like he's really going against the family up until the turn. But again, they go with the, you can't break away from how you were brought up, sadly, and his own survival instincts by the end as well.
Yeah.
oh man,
But
it kills me when they were he's sawing through the bedpost with his handcuffs. All I could think of
Hmm.
is like, have you not ever played on one of those things, like like a bed with a footboard before? Like it's funny because I immediately think of my nephew.
Hmm.
When I stay with my sister in New York, when I go visit, my nephew loves to climb up on the bed, and he will kind of like oh, she's not gonna listen to this. It's like he almost like pole dance on the on the little
Yeah.
the side of the can't what is that called, like the footboard, but
Yeah.
the posts. And she like he pulled it out like accidentally,
Hmm.
and she has like a very heavy duty, like I think it's like oak one that's an antique. And I'm sure this is a very good quality bed and footboard. In the movie, obviously they're well off, they have money, they can spend it on that. But he like saws through it, when I'm like, he could have just shouldered into that post.
Yes. Yeah. I think it's just a convenient fiction here that he can't, that it's because it seems to me there's a bunch of ways he could have like probably in real life maneuvered off of that thing. But I agree with you. The easiest would be just to probably stand up and wrench it out of its place.
But one thing that is funny is they mentioned the commentary too, though, is one of the main house location, when it was the actual kind of house, they were told you can't touch anything. Like it was museum-esque and everything was off limits, and they had to really be careful what they could touch and what they could move, and if they could do any of that. And they talked about how strict everything was and how careful they had to be.
Oh, interesting.
That was it's interesting, also because a lot of big mansion houses are that they've been in the family so long. Oh, we don't go in that room because
Right.
everything in there is priceless, and it's just such a shame because you're like, well, you have 30 rooms and you can live in 2 of them. Jeez,
What I love is that you're paying probably a lot of money. I have no idea actually what it costs to rent a mansion, but you're paying all this money to these rich people, and they're like, okay, we're going to Palm Springs, you guys have fun making your anti-rich allegory murder movie, and they're walking out with your tens of thousands of dollars, and I'm like, who exactly is getting skewered in this case? Like, is it that's because that's the other thing that I often worry about is, hey, we're really sticking it to the rich, but we're also this is an
making the rich
opiate.
richer.
They're making the rich richer, and it's an opiate. We're soothing ourselves with allegory. So I don't know the answer.
Well, it's not like it's all by degrees, right?
Yes.
Because you got a studio that you're expected to make millions of dollars, who is
That's
giving you
true.
millions of dollars, and actors who may or may not be making, if not hundreds of thousands, making millions of dollars.
Yeah.
And who may or may not see themselves as the good guys or the bad guys in this.
Yeah.
So
that's interesting.
It's all where you want to take it. There's no perfect read on it, but it is fascinating how it all works and how, in this Hollywood system, you may have a movie that's about sticking it to the rich or how the rich are evil, but yet who's bankrolling this?
Yeah, and the rich are still going to get rich off that movie. Yeah.
Right. I don't know. We don't live in a society that's just like, oh, and this is exactly how it is. There's so many. That's the thing I go back to. There's complexity to so much stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So when people boil down things to a very simple thing, I often react to that because it's almost never simple.
There's this. I think it was okay. If it wasn't H.L. Mencken, I really apologize, but I could have sworn that it was Mencken who said that for every complicated problem there's a very simple answer that's wrong, and I live by that, because if something sounds too simple, it probably is. Okay, Tony, did you have any other thoughts?
No, I mean, I really like this movie. I think that, and I really do say again, it's strange because in the complex, stupid, gray world we live in, being firmly middle class now, having grown up, definitely, having eaten government cheese and made powdered milk and stuff like that. It's funny to go, stick it to the rich when, I can buy DVDs and whatever right now. So I fully, embrace that maybe sometimes I'm part of the problem, but, I try. But I think, it is very cathartic to me to watch this terrible satanic family who's willing to sacrifice somebody, get their comeuppance. And then the reaction at the end with just like, screw it, I've had enough tonight. I'm just going to sit here and smoke.
Yes.
It's great. And all the little comedic bits. I am glad that I was happy to watch a darkly comic movie again, because I watched less just out and out dark movies. I have a couple in my recommendations that kind of go along this line. But it was nice to revisit this one. I liked it in the theater. I think everybody does a great job, and the amount that everyone was able to discuss means there's a lot more meat on it than a lot of similar Most Dangerous Game, homages or ripoffs or however more movies that have come from that have had less to say or less ham-fistedly. Usually it's, hey, look, the rich will do anything, and that's fine to be on that surface level, but it was cool to talk about it from a lot of different perspectives.
Fantastic. Mr. Drew, what about you?
I don't want to keep repeating myself, but I guess I will. Like, I do think that this movie I think it's a great movie just in of itself, but I think culturally it's part of an interesting trend. And I think, where we're at as a society, and, I say it a lot to, the editor, one of the editors on Halloween Man, Guy Russell Hillman, and he's English, and we talk a lot about he asks me a lot about what's going on in the news. And, he sees armed people, at a Capitol building, and he asks me, what's going on in your country? And I'm like, America's ready to pop, man. That's where we're at. And I think that's why we're having movies like this, and like a succession of movies like this. And it's funny that this movie's titled Ready or Not, because in a way that's kind of where we're at. Change is going to come. Change is here, ready or not. And that's really my takeaway watching this movie. And perhaps I'm looking at it and seeing deeper things than are necessary, but I'm somebody that really firmly believes that horror movies and horror in general is the mirror that we hold up to society. And I just see all these movies with similar themes, and I just don't think that can be a fluke.
Absolutely.
I think it's a symptom. So that's my final thought is still the same as my first thought. Look at the through line from Texas Chainsaw to this, and then think to yourself, ready or not, here we come.
Thank you. I could add nothing to that. I've really enjoyed discussing this film. I want to know what you guys. So it sounds like Tony had a recommendation that is related to this movie. So we'll get there. But first, Miss Jamie, as our guest, first of all, welcome back. I'm so happy that you had a chance to come back, and I hope things are going well with Girls Rock Austin. I know that we're living under quarantine, but still, you're welcome to tell us anything that you like about that. And also, I would love to know if you have anything to endorse for us this week.
Yeah. So at Girls Rock Austin, we have decided to move our legendary summer camps to an online platform for the first time ever, and we're excited that we're still able to offer our award-winning programming, and that's really important to empowering girls and trans youth, and but at the same point it's sad. It's one of the things you look forward to all year is getting to see our campers, and it won't be the same doing it online, but we're also on our direct relief service right now, for campers and their families who've been directly affected by COVID-19. It's called Operation Lunchbox, and it's basically to provide healthy, nutritious meals and ingredients for families who need it right now, and but also providing necessary sanitary needs, and that also includes menstrual products. And that's something that people don't tend to want to talk about, but it's something that there's a lot of people right now who don't have access to just normal hygienic items, and the extra cost of menstrual care products for people it's ridiculous. We still have a pink tax, so it's hard. And we want to make sure that a lot of these people who we're giving this stuff to, they're young people. It's hard to talk to your families about what's going on with you physically and emotionally, and this is an opportunity for them to have a little bit more of I'm trying to think how to put it, have a little bit more being empowered about how they are going to take care of their own situation and their own bodies, even if it's not necessarily something easy to do with what they've been provided by their families at this time. So that's what's
And you said
going
it
on with
was
the Girls Rock
Operation Lunchbox.
Lunchbox.
Where will people find it?
It's still Girls Rock Austin. If you'd like to support the cause, we're we're looking for volunteers in the Austin area. We're to deliver meals, and help with food preparation, and gathering supplies for Operation Lunchbox. But it all is all part of Girls Rock Austin. So you can go on the website and check out anything you're curious about at girlsrockaustin.org. Or if you're so inclined, please help make a donation. We definitely need the community's help, and this is a really trying time for a lot of families. I mean, for everyone's having their moments where they lose it, but for some people who've lost employment, and especially single income families, that's terrible right now. And so many single moms are in the service industry, and have been really put out by a lot of this. And if they are getting work, they, might be putting themselves at risk, or they're not making the same type of wages in the first place. So having that extra initiative to really get back in there and help the community is something that I feel like is really wonderful about Austin in general. But I'm really excited for this program to get started for Girls Rock Austin. And then for me, I've been working on some, recording some new music at home on my own. I took a class with the Jam Room, which I highly recommend. Learning about sound trap and lots of good things. So, excited about doing that. Maybe doing a little live streaming coming up soon. But I wanted to have some new songs that I could debut to the crowds. So I'm excited about that stuff. So
Thank you very much. And it's occurring to me that there are some cool people that Tony and I know that might be good to hook you up with to promote Girls Rock Austin. So I'll follow up with you about
That'd be
that
great.
afterwards. Yeah.
All right. Thank
Because
you.
I know somebody
I
who does
didn't
a
say
radio
that.
show around there. So
I
go
was going
ahead.
to say, did we start for recommendations? I would recommend Killing Eve was a show I really liked. It's a show, I believe, by FX,
Mm-hmm.
but I watched on Hulu, starring Sandra Oh, and she is just fantastic. I'll watch anything that she does, but it's kind of like a modern spy movie, but with a very good cast. And it definitely passes the Bechdel test. So, but it's really like kind of has a cliffhanger each episode. You're always wondering what's going to happen next,
Oh, absolutely.
and I don't know if they're bringing it back for a third season or not. But it was, like I said, that I was shocked by the last episode. I was really just like, whoa, and it's not usually you get that in that type of show. So I do recommend it to anybody who's looking for something fun and kind of exciting to watch. And not to
Well, there's a
mention
new season. I mean, Julia's
FX.
obsessed
I'm
with
wrong.
that
It's
show.
the BBC.
Ah,
It's from the BBC. Is there a new season?
there is, but I don't know which season it is. I mean, but yes.
Oh, okay.
So
Um,
yeah.
I was gonna say, like I said, I watched it through Hulu and I loved it. So, but if there's a new season, I'm excited.
Cool. Mr. Tony, what have you to endorse for us?
Well, I got to say, following Jamie, anything I say, I feel kind of selfish because Jamie does so much awesome stuff, and Girls Rock Austin is amazing. And thanks so much for having us be a part of a few things here and there. But
we love
thank you so much for
having
everything you
you.
do.
Are just wonderful.
I really appreciate it, and I'm just in awe of everything you do to help people. I try to point people that way all the time because it's such a positive force. Music's one of those things that
Thanks,
I've
Johnny.
always find as a universal solvent. It's what has helped me get through so much. So, and then the things you do are, again, like I said, I feel a little selfish because all of my stuff is all genre film things, but I thank
Tony,
you.
if you want to feel absolved, all my stuff is going to be.
You and me both, boy. Yeah.
But my first thing that kind of just came up through the podcast was if you want to continue with, I think, darker than this class warfare stuff, there's a newer movie called The Platform that's on Netflix, and it's great, but it's dark. It's interesting, kind of a little bit sci-fi, but having to do with classism and how people react. Also from 2017, the Belko experiment, where an office is basically locked down and becomes kill or be killed.
Sounds great.
And it is, again, both of those are way darker than this movie. So go into it with that knowledge. I don't know if I would watch them right now in particular. The other two things I have are in the Fantastic Fest Fiends page, which, Fantastic Fest, who knows what's going to happen this year? I don't know. But as the kind of transition into, hey, let's figure out how we're going to navigate things, the Chattanooga Film Festival has switched to online on demand, and they sold out of VIP tickets, which were pretty cool. But for $30, I found out through this Facebook page, you can basically, there's live stuff that's happening still. And that's scheduled. But for $30, you get access to the library of on-demand stuff that's going to be at the film festival for like 96 hours, I think. So even that takes it into, I think, Tuesday. And $30 to see all these genre films. There's documentaries, there's genre film, there's shorts, all the stuff you usually see at a film festival. You can access. I don't think there's like an app, but you could, if you can hook your PC up to an HDMI cable, you can put that on your TV. So I thought that was super cool. $30 is super cheap for all of that content. And some of it you may not see like outside of a festival. And that's what I love about Fantastic Fest. We talk about it a lot on the show, but that's what powers me for the year. Did you see this? For example, Blood Machines, which I saw last year, is just now coming out on Shudder. It's this crazy music video CG sci-fi thing, but it's taken this long to get out on Shudder, which I also think if you like Heavy Metal the movie, you might like Blood Machines. But in addition to Chattanooga Film Festival, which we'll put the link up, Also, 36 Chamber or 36 Cinema. I think I talked about it. I got to see 36 Chamber with Dan Houslett, who's helped bring a bunch of Shaw Brothers films to Genre Film Archive, and the RZA, from the Wu-Tang Clan, showed that. Well, this Sunday they're doing Shogun Assassin, which if you haven't seen Shogun Assassin, it's oops, that's on me. It's the first two Lone Wolf and Cub movies cut together into one movie and dubbed. And that sounds like it should be terrible because there's not a lot of success in that kind of putting that stuff together. But Shogun Assassin somehow becomes this amazing movie. They watch it in Kill Bill. She shows it to her daughter. Hey, let's watch this movie. And but they're also going to do commentary. So I'll put the link up for that. But I thought the last live streaming thing was really cool and was fun to kind of listen to. And I think this movie's really cool. I watch it every time. If it shows in the theater, if it's shown at the Draft House, I usually go see it. And I own a copy and everything because I have to. But those are, it's all genre film recommendations this time, and I'm hoping that you'll virtually join me for at least some of those if that's your bag.
Fabulous. Mr. Drew Edwards, what about you?
I love how you said my whole name.
Mm-hmm.
It makes me feel so important.
It's just part of my being.
Or like I just got in trouble in school.
Mr. Drew Edwards. So once again, I find you in my office.
Principal Peyton Douglas.
All right, go ahead. Yes.
So first off, I'm going to go with my actual recommendation this week because they just put out a new Scooby Doo CGI animated movie. I ain't going to talk about that. I haven't seen it yet. I'm not even messing with it. That is, I'm not going to comment on whether or not it's good or bad. I'm not going to pretend like I'm never going to see it. But what I'm telling you is that if you want something Scooby-Doo flavored right now, something to sort of take the edge off, the thing you should do is go on Netflix and watch Scooby Doo Mystery Incorporated.
I did not know this existed until you mentioned it.
I love this show. Like I have been a Scooby Doo fan, like a lot of monster kids. I am a Scooby Doo fan. I don't think that's an uncommon thing because Scooby Doo is kind of a gateway drug to horror in a lot of respects. And this show really leans into that. There's like a lot of references to horror and sci-fi movies. They really ramp up the atmosphere. It's got really funny writing. And, it also takes a lot from it's Scooby-Doo by way of Buffy the Vampire Slayer, which is kind of funny because Buffy the Vampire Slayer borrows so much from Scooby-Doo's formula. And, when I say that it has references, I just watched an episode that was a homage to War of the Gargantuas called Battle of the Mungonaut. And it was such a good, just such a love letter to that movie that they even worked in like the jazz song from that movie.
It's amazing.
Like you can tell the people who wrote this cartoon, really love horror and sci-fi, and they're really putting that into it. But they also really love Scooby-Doo. And it just really good writing. And I know Tony is also a fan because we were kind of dorking out about it before we started. Yeah. And I'm so glad that somebody else on the show has watched it. And, because like I watched this, was like this, it instantly became like the only thing I wanted to watch until I consumed all of it. Like, well,
Max, yeah, man. Max Meehan, told me, he's like, oh, my kids are watching this, but it's really good. You got to see this. I was like, oh man, a lot of new Scooby-Doo hasn't really been that good. He's like, no. So I sat down and watched some of it with him, and I was absolutely all in. I need to watch the rest of it. But yeah, come on. I mean, early Scooby-Doo, the characters do exactly their shtick. They have a shtick, right. They stick to it, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But what they've done to deepen the characters and kind of build on those relationships, they didn't have to do that. They could have made this really solid old school Scooby-Doo, and everybody would have liked it because that's fun and cool. But the fact they do what Drew's talking about, where they do have all these interesting things and then also add a little bit more to the characters themselves and their relationships, is really great. it's better than it has to be.
Well, that same
And that's what's
episode that I was just talking about really builds on the idea that there is a chaste love triangle, obviously, because one of the characters is a dog, between Shaggy, Velma, and Scooby.
Mm-hmm.
And that is such a crazy, accurate, observant thing. You know, like the writing on the show is so smart, and you can also tell that the people on it have like consumed every bit of Scooby Doo that they could to make observations like that.
That's wonderful. Okay, well, all right, I'm
great.
sold. I gotta watch that. That sounds really good. Very cool.
So if I may, one more thing.
Go crazy.
Because this is going to be our one and only episode this week, and I got to keep pushing this until people can't. I can't push it no more. You need to go to the Ringo Awards website. You need to go to the nomination process. You need to go to the part where it says Best Writer and put in Drew Edwards, and then you need to go to the other part where it says Best Hero, and you need to put in Halloween Man, because this October is the 20th anniversary of Halloween Man. And I want to take home a Ringo Award. I don't care if the world is ending. So that's what you got to do.
Love it. Okay, I will make a note of it, and I will make sure that there's a link on our page as well. So, and in fact, I will, for Jamie, it was Girls Rock Austin and Operation Lunchbox. For Drew, it was the new Scooby Doo and Ringo. And Tony, what's the name of the movie? The movie series that you were endorsing?
Oh, I gave you the links to.
Okay, very good.
All right. Jason, it is very specifically Scooby Doo Mystery Inc. on Netflix.
Yep.
Mystery Inc.
Yeah. Mine were Chattanooga Film Festival, 36chambers.com, and Belko Experiment, and the platform. So, but yeah, you have all that.
Love it. My actual endorsement is the first time we've ever done this. So I, it's funny because quarantine is giving us this opportunity to start just thinking about new crazy things we can do. And so I'm doing a book release event on Zoom on June 2nd, which is when the Bookman comes out. So I'm going to do a virtual launch party where we've got a Facebook event page about this on the Facebook page, and so you can go and it just has a link to where we will be hosting it in Zoom. And I will actually, the funny thing is that the most dangerous thing in hosting Zoom parties right now is Zoom bombers, where people sneak in, and so you got to be like quick on the draw to get rid of crazy people who show up. But that's okay because I'm ready for this, and I'm super excited because I'm gonna like show some slides of the different parts of horror and tiki and surf culture and everything that went into the book, and I think it's going to be super fun. So if you're interested in that, check it out on the page. And that's all I got. I am so thankful that you guys would spend time with me this Thursday night talking about this movie. Jamie, thank you for joining us.
Oh, thanks for having me.
It's always a blast. And I will talk to you guys. Well, I'll talk to you next week because we're taking Memorial Day off. I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Adios.
Good night.